VUMC and now partner in our law firm. We're glad to have him back. Tell me when you're ready. Ready?
We're all set, yes sir.
Okay. I'm George Barrett, and this is Jerry Martin. To my immediate left was the law firm of Barrett and Johnson, and we've been asked by a number of persons, including workers, organizations, and industry groups, to look into these mass layoffs taking place in Vanderbilt University's medical school. All of you know that around July 1st, approximately 300 persons were terminated. We understand, as reported in today's paper, that there will be additional layoffs by the Vice Chancellor of Medical Affairs, which may reach 1,000. This is a profound impact on our community and on the university. We're looking into discrepancies in these layoffs based on federal and state laws protecting employees, from mass layoffs, from discrimination on the basis of race or age, the use of the Family Medical Leave Act, or WARN, which is a statute requiring certain notices before mass layoffs. I'm a graduate of Vanderbilt Law School, and I've been a constant critic of the manner in which they treat their hourly employees. Vanderbilt has some of the highest paid administrators in the country. And the place they've started to save money is not with those high paid administrators, but with those on the very bottom of the economic ramp, those hourly workers who are to make a living wage in today's society. We think that's wrong. We think it reflects very poorly on Vanderbilt as an eleemosynary organization, and we've been asked to investigate it, and we will continue that investigation. We believe we will find evidence that will warrant appropriate action. Now, Jerry wants to talk about that.
Thank you. Sorry. Is that stable? Thank you very much. I'm Jerry Martin. Also want to introduce to my right, Roger Sparks. He'll be available to speak after we've concluded and take questions. Mr. Sparks is a former employee who was terminated earlier this month by the Vanderbilt University Medical Center. I want to elaborate on a couple of things that George said and make a couple of points. First off, it's not a question of semantics in terms of whether this was a mass termination or a mass layoff. That may be important in terms of the distinction of what exactly happened and the basis for the decisions that Vanderbilt made when it was selecting these employees. The medical center claims that these decisions were based on the budget realities in today's budgetary climate for universities and hospitals, but it also appears that based on the individuals that we've spoken to, that some of these decisions or all of these decisions were in part based purportedly on performance issues with the employees. And so we're looking into that to understand exactly what the reason Vanderbilt used and how it went about selecting the individuals that were ultimately terminated. We're looking at the demographics of the affected employees, including their ages, race, and whether they have recently taken leave under the Family Medical Leave Act. It is against the law to target older workers, even if they are more expensive on the payrolls. It's also illegal to target individuals based on their race or whether they've exercised their rights under the Family Medical Leave Act. Finally, and importantly, in the spring of this year, Vanderbilt announced changes in how its employees would accrue vacation time. And essentially, this spring, Vanderbilt ceased allowing any hourly employees to accrue vacation time going forward through July 1st, was the announcement. Although I'm not at liberty at this time to elaborate, we have reason to believe that the explanations given for this change in policy at the time were not entirely accurate or forthcoming. We are examining the accounting practices that may have prompted this mass termination. At the end of the day, our goal will be to carefully examine the motivation of the mass termination, to analyze whether the action violated any laws, and advise our clients and act accordingly. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes. Jerry, if you say your clients, Can we assume that they are all people at Vanderbilt who've been laid off, and how many?
We have been contacted over the last week by a number of individuals who are employees affected by the termination. We have paralegals and attorneys that are available to talk to them, and in fact are talking to them to get their basic information, to ask the kind of questions that we need to do an analysis of whether or not they either individually or collectively may have some kind of legal action.
I would think that since you called this press conference, you are already finding that there could be problems here with the way this went down? Or?
I think what we're finding are a couple of things. One, we have concerns on the criteria that was used to select the individuals. On one hand, Vanderbilt says this was all based on, or this was compelled by budgetary reasons. But on the other hand, they seem to be saying that individuals were selected for termination based on performance. So what we want to do is understand to the best of our abilities what the criteria that Vanderbilt utilized to determine who was not performing at the levels that they expected. And a few things that are jumping out to us immediately are potential issues involving the age of the individual selected, potentially whether they had exercised their right under the Family Medical Leave Act. At this point, though, we're simply gathering information to conduct an investigation.
How many employees have you interviewed so far?
Pardon?
About how many employees have you interviewed so far?
In excess of a dozen.
And have any patterns emerged around the circumstances around their firing?
For example, one of them was, they didn't say FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act. Only one other document needed to be executed when he was terminated. The number of them over the protected age category, 40 and over. We're looking into the racial aspects of it. There's an organization out there that's been around Vanderbilt called Our Vanderbilt, which is organized United for Respect to Vanderbilt employees, and they're interested in pursuing this. So we're working with, as I say, organizations and individuals. We expect the number to be increased. Since this announcement was made last night, there'd be a press conference this morning. We've been, I wouldn't say dead, but all I've done this morning since I've gotten here is answer the telephone with former Vanderbilt employees. And this gentleman called us yesterday, and we invite him here today. He's been working there over 20 years, and never had any problems.
George, do you have to find this information just by people coming to you and you asking them questions, or can you compel Vanderbilt to give you some of this?
Vanderbilt's not a public institution, but it does have a number of requirements under federal law that has to file tax returns and that sort of thing that are available publicly. But it's not subject to the Open Records Act like a state or federal institution is. So it takes some digging, and what we expect to find enough. We hope we can find enough to show that a lot of this is pretextual to get rid of older employees or employees that don't consider maybe considered FMLA and all that sort of thing.
I'd like to talk to Mr. Sparks, but we have
Sure.
a problem with the microphone there. Thank you very much. Sorry for my print friends.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Mr. Sparks, were you an hourly employee there?
Sure was, yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you did?
At the time, my main job was we washed cages, the animal cages. We'd send them through a machine, autoclave or whatever. We washed those cages. They dump them and scrape them out, wash them, and prep them for clean cages.
Sounds like this was in the research area of Vanderbilt
yeah.
Medical Center.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us a little bit about your being laid off, and how you learned about it and what they told you?
Only thing I learned is I walked in that Monday, right after the 4th, I walked in, I was called to the office by my supervisor, and they took me to this little room they had set up, and they just handed me a letter saying, you've been terminated.
Nothing else?
They just said it has to do with the budgetary, and they say work performance. It's just a form letter that everyone else got. I've got a copy of the letter inside my phone here.
I got a copy.
He's got a copy.
What year did you go to work for Vanderbilt?
95. December 95.
So describe the feeling when they told you that you were no longer employed after such a long
I
time.
was just in shock. I thought, well, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? Or, you know, I was just in total shock.
What did your previous performance reviews look like?
They look good. They look pretty good. I mean, supervisor, matter of fact, our supervisor even said it. We got different areas of animal care, different washrooms and stuff in different areas. And he was telling us that our area was always ready for inspection. It's at day one, and we got along well. We worked together good, and he had no problem. It was a real relief for him to come over because everything was just done so well, and we all worked together good.
So, Mr. Sparks, if that's the case, what do you think went wrong, and why did you feel the need to contact an attorney yesterday?
Because I thought my rights were violated because I wouldn't give him a warning, and I thought it maybe had something to do with my age and how much I was making.
What was your job title at the time?
At the time, it was a washroom tech 2, but I was a LAT, a lab animal tech. So it's washroom tech 2, but I was a lab animal tech. I was certified through ALAS.
You know, I'm sure other people who lost jobs too.
Yes, sir.
I know Vanderbilt's a big place, but
Yes, sir.
I mean, what's your thoughts about the way all this went down?
I just feel bad about myself. I really feel bad for those people who are maybe younger than I am. They got kids at home who are depending on that money to support their kids, you know, or maybe college. They offer a great thing for, you know, college thing for kids. Because my daughter took advantage of that. And she got money to go to college. She graduated from college. She took advantage of it. So that was a great perk we had. And now those guys who got dismissed don't have that. The kids be stuck in limbo. How they get money to go to college.
What about the fairness aspect of the way that this went down?
I don't think it was fair. I think I should be in some kind of warning. It wasn't fair at all. Should be in some kind of warning.
Mr. Sparks, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you feel comfortable telling us how much you were making at the time that you got fired?
I was making just a little 18 an hour. Of course, I started out making like $5.30 or $5.40 an hour. I kind of passed those tests. They went to the pass. I passed the test, and I just kept doing better, you know.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 52.
52.
So looking at being 52 years old and unemployed, what are your options? What are you doing? How are you going to get by?
Well, my wife still works. She still works. And just since I got a couple more checks coming, you know, through the time period. But after that, I don't know. It's just, you know, I've been online looking in places for other employment. May have to leave the state or leave Nashville to find a job in my area.
You've been there 18 years on a full-time basis.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Barrett and Mr. Martin were talking about concerns that they have about employees were picked because of their age or their race or because they've taken a family leave. Knowing what you know about what happened, do you feel like they might be onto something?
Oh, I feel 100% that they're right. Because I've talked to several different people. Like he said, one to FMLA, and then that age, and another person who had an A1 work record, no performance whatsoever, and he's a couple of years older than I am, and he got dismissed. So they kind of not consistent. If it's performance, okay, why not get rid of all the performance people, non-performance people, if that's the case.
Good thing, yes.
Do they take everybody out of your department, or?
No, sir, no. I'm not for sure the exact number of our department. I know about maybe 3 or 4 directly of our department that got dismissed, but I don't know the exact number.
If it comes out that what they're alleging is true, I mean, how hard is that going to be to grasp from an employer that you worked for so long?
If it's true, and that's after all the findings are looking into, if it's true, I just have to take it and, you know, go on. If it's true, and that's what these guys are for. They're looking into it.
But I assume up until this point, Vanderbilt is something that, you know, that was your employer for such a long time.
Oh, it was. We loved it. We went to all the tailgate parties and stuff, and had all these logos on my truck, and posters in my office at home, and all that, just because I really loved Vanderbilt. Even as a kid, I sold newspapers back in the early 70s at the football games when Kenny Norman and all those guys were, you know, Kenny Norman was around. He sold newspapers. My dad and I sold newspapers for $0.10 a piece, and I really loved Vanderbilt.
Did you have any final conversation with your supervisor about the circumstance?
No. Only thing I told him when I left, I said, he gave me she and him gave me the letter. They were sitting in the office. I said, well, I ain't got nothing to say. Next time you hear from me, you hear from my attorney.
Did they give you any resources as to how you can apply for unemployment potential?
Yeah, they told me about a career development thing. They gave me an organization to go call for career development.
Is that like walking out of the medical center that day?
I felt bad because then he told me I can't come back. If I come back, I could be charged with trespassing. That may be their policy.
Even if he's sick.
Yeah. Did they give you the $1,000 and the 2 weeks?
It's on the letter. It's on the letter. I haven't got it yet. I think I got my vacation time. I had accumulated, and I got the $1,000. It goes toward career development or for health care.
Right. Okay.
Is that true? Even if he's sick, he can't return the property?
Well, yeah. I think if you got a medical issue, you got a family member in the hospital, you can. But before you just come out on campus, you could be charged with trespassing.
George, Jerry, you'll have to forgive my ignorance of the law, but what exactly are the legal options that you're looking at, that you're considering at this point?
Well, the legal options, if we find violations of federal law, we attempt to bring a class action on behalf of all those who've been victims of this discrimination, if there is such. As Jerry alluded to, there's several different reasons they give people. One is performance evaluations. The other is budgetary consideration. But we believe there may be some more deeper reasons than that, as Jerry stated, in regards to accounting methods and that sort of thing. That's what we're trying to dig into.
Jerry, what can we expect the next step then to be? I mean, when will we hear from you again? Or
well, that's unknown at this point. But I do want to emphasize, just to make it clear, that one of the things we're looking at very closely is this idea that Vanderbilt took away the ability for hourly employees to accrue vacation time up until July 1st, and then on July 1st announced a number of terminations and said that there would be more to come. We have reason to believe that announcement and the reasons given for to the employees back in the spring about the inability to accrue vacation time was not fully transparent, nor was Vanderbilt fully forthcoming about how it found itself in that situation. So we're looking right now to see if there were some accounting issues that may have ultimately led to a need to terminate employees and to not allow them to accumulate vacation time.
So are you saying like they stopped paying or accruing vacation time in the spring so that they would avoid paying 2 or 3 days of vacation when they laid somebody off in July?
No, I'm saying that I'm not able to really give you much more other than what I'm telling you at this point. But when you're a large corporation or the government or a big entity like Vanderbilt, accrued vacation time can be a significant liability if you have thousands of employees. So we want to understand how Vanderbilt got to the situation where it felt compelled to, what was it about the vacation time that caused Vanderbilt to not allow employees to accrue more time, because that is something that is a knowable liability that any institution ought to be able to figure out what its liabilities are going to be for its individuals who are receiving vacation time pursuant to whatever their employment agreement is.
How carefully do you watch what happens now with 1,000 more, as George mentioned, possibly coming?
Oh, extraordinary. I mean, we're looking at it very, very closely. We'll talk to any current, former employees, any other individuals that might have information that could be helpful in trying to understand exactly what happened. But we're going to be closely scrutinizing what's happened in the past and what happens going forward.
How do you go about trying to find out that information from a payroll perspective if they're not a public institution? I mean, is that something that potentially you're going to have to learn in deposition, or?
Well, we can learn a fair amount from talking to people like Mr. Sparks and other employees, current and former employees, who want to come forward and talk to us about what information they have. That's the stage that we're in now. We're conducting an investigation. There may be limitations on what we can learn at this point, because until there's a lawsuit filed, we don't have the ability to issue subpoenas or take discovery. If there's a lawsuit filed, though, we will have the ability to get a fair amount of information through the normal process.
based on what you're seeing, how likely do you think it is that there will be a lawsuit that emerges from that?
From my understanding, you asked him the question about the vacation time. In a meeting, we had a meeting, and they said to prevent layoffs from April the 1st to July the 1st, they was going to stop any vacation time from accumulating for any regular staff employees. That was to prevent layoffs. That's was my understanding.
Okay, so you figured like if they were going to do that, then your job's going to be okay.
Yeah, and then they did a little minor things that, didn't really matter much. They stopped buying a little minor stuff, But as far as from April the 1st to July the 1st, they said there will be no vacation time accumulated. This will prevent layoffs.
Mr. Sparks, you said, just to be clear, you said you got your notice on July 5th?
Yeah, it was whatever. What was the Monday past the 4th?
Monday past the 4th.
Monday past the 8th.
And did you say, did you have an inkling that something like this might happen?
I had no idea. Like I said, it caught me by surprise, just shocked. Didn't know nothing was coming. They made me think everything was hunky-dory and everything's okay because they stopped the vacation time from accumulating. Everything's okay. And all of a sudden they just called me in the office. I thought I did something really bad, maybe. Went in and they handed me a letter and that was it.
You talked about your love for Vanderbilt, doing the papers back in the 70s. Have you lost some respect for Vanderbilt?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Now, they got some great doctors there and great caring doctors and nurses. Don't get me wrong, there's a great medical center for if you're sick and need help with a doctor. They're great. But it's just the upper tier, I guess.
Call management.
Yeah, management. Call management, yes, sir. Call management. They're the ones that, But if I get really sick, I would probably still go there because I know they get great doctors.
Okay. I want to point out it's not anything that's I think valuable for I don't know that I need the microphones, but Ben Eagle is here from our Vanderbilt. He's in the hallway. He's a good resource. If you don't know our Vanderbilt, they're an organization that it's a community-based organization that's devoted to economic justice at Vanderbilt. But Ben is out in the hallway, and you should get his card. He's a great source of information. He knows really what's happening on campus. And it's a great organization, so I just want to point out and make that introduction to him. Thanks.
He's also a Vanderbilt graduate.